Thank you. Now we're going to open up to the floor in a way, to looking at the Slido questions. I think we're going to try something slightly risky here. If we could start with Jordan Ray. Is Jordan still around? Yeah. Quite sure how I tell, but if,
1 second, I need to give permission to unmute. Jordan, you should be able now to unmute.
Jordan, you had a question there on data culture at the top of the Slido. Would you like to ask that question to our 4 people?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
I certainly can, yes.
That's grand. The question was basically around data culture and how it's basically a highlighted topic right now within FinTech and GovTech. And I was just wondering about the opinions of the panel in regards to how can organizations enable their employees to thrive and in turn own that data transformation within the organization.
So how can you enable your employees to thrive and own that data transformation? Should we start with Teresa again?
Yeah, oh, excellent. I managed to unmute myself first go. There you go. Yeah, so thanks for that question, Jordan. I think what we've done really, I think when we talk about leadership, we don't just talk about the most senior people in our organisation. I think we're also talking about those informal network of leaders that we've got who have the respect of their peers. So I think one of the things that we would be looking at, or one of the things we are looking at in policing, is how can we harness that network of leaders, because they become our positive advocates, if you like, for what we're trying to do around improving our data quality. So that's one of the things that we are doing. I think the other thing that links to that, to be honest, is around literacy and data literacy skills within our frontline officers. So in order for officers to really feel, if you like, enabled and to feel part of that transition into a better culture, we need to be able to provide them with the literacy skills to understand what data matters most to them and how they can use and exploit their data lawfully, ethically within the role that they have in policing. So that's probably a very quick answer, but I'm happy to expand if need be, or if other panel members want to chip in.
Yeah, let's go around the panel. Nicole, you look like you were about to speak.
Just thinking how I'd answer it, to be honest. I think
okay.
No, I think one of the things that we have at Ordnance Survey is we have so many different types of data, and we also have a kind of more central data team, and it's definitely around, I think, being able to translate or speak the right language to the right people to really help that land with what matters to them. And so that might be, for example, if we're working with our operations teams, that's around our geospatial data that goes out in our data products. But actually, we've got our HR systems, we've got our customer record systems, we've got so many other different systems that hold data, and actually all of it's important to enable the overall outcomes for the business. And I think we are increasingly seeing data happening everywhere, in all different teams within the business. And so finding that hook almost that helps people to understand what that means for them within their role, within the type of data that they use on a day-to-day basis and actually will use for their own decision making, helps to exemplify why it's important. And hopefully then you grow a network almost of champions around the business that can see that value. And then it comes from within different teams, rather than kind of having a central team that just say, we're going to do data quality, and this is why. It actually means that people can start to see that benefit in their own day jobs, in their own work, and hopefully you kind of grow that positive reinforcement.
Yeah, so in order to make it work, they have to own that transformation, because there's just too much to do for you to do it all. Yeah. Simon, you can.
Yes, I think I completely agree. Actually, I think there's that nice quote, which is the best data stewards are found, not made. And so it's being able to find those people who are passionate about it, and then give them the space and the time. And I think that's where we talked about culture and leadership. If you can get the leadership signed up, they have the capability to give people the time and permission and the resources to say, actually, this is a focus of work that we need to do, and we're recognizing is bringing benefit. So having that kind of network of people, building that network of people who are enthusiastic about data and data quality will help grow, and will then hopefully have that kind of growth of network out through the business, and it'll become a business as usual activity.
And Andrew, do you have anything to add on that?
I just realised how difficult it is to listen to the other panelists and try to think of something really clever and different to say at the same time. It's just quite a challenge. I think I hadn't thought about it in this way, but before, but the way I'm going to describe it here. But I think for me, it's trying to find the benefits for the individuals that you're wanting to engage with around data quality. And I hadn't thought about it in this way before, but we actually approach data collection in the NHS by having something called burden assessments. So we actually refer to data collection as burden from the outset. And I think to a certain extent that kind of approach is everybody now, every time you ask for some data from them, they instantly see it as burden and extra work. But I think one of the things that they don't tend to appreciate is a lot of that burden does actually come from not getting it quite right first time, and that a lot of the additional contact they're getting from the centre, be through metrics or through data quality reports, creates that extra burden. But it's by not addressing it at source just once and correcting it once, would actually start to remove some of that burden. And I think it's been able to tie that good data quality practice from the outset could actually remove some of that burden that is a byproduct of not getting it right. But I think from a cultural point of view, it's trying to get rid of that perception that all requests for data is a burden.
Okay, thank you very much. Just saying, there we go. Okay, so moving on to, I've got another question from Mary Susan Barry, which is a question about data roles. So in the sense, you've talked a little bit about the roles of people there. Mary Susan, are you available to read your question?
Yes, I can, but also there's a couple of other similar questions. So I just wondered if I can put them all together.
That would be very helpful if you can. That'd be great. Yeah.
So one of the things that where I'm currently based and other roles I've been looking at are that when everyone talks data, it's very much sort of from administration, data management, data science, and it seems to be everyone thinks you really need to have really good skills in Python and R and all those sort of, well, it appears to me a lot of people want programming aspects of, rather than sort of much more the sort of information, what I'd call information management sort of skills, which is enforcing rules and governance and principles and things like that. And one of the other questions that there in the chat is about core skills and what core skills are required to deliver data quality. And I know also Jordan Ray has said, is there any way as technology advances that there will be an adaptation and tooling, so there won't be such a, what appears at the moment to me, be such a high level of technical knowledge. I certainly, I would say I understand all the concepts. I understand what data architecture is. I understand what an information, a network infrastructure is, but I couldn't deliver those yet. For many of the roles I see around, it does appear those are the sorts of skills people think you should have. So I'm just interested to know, sort of more about how, when you're creating maybe a multidisciplined team, or is there a need for a more multidisciplined approach to data quality than just the sort of very technical route that everyone seems to be applying?
Okay, yeah, so that's I mean, a question about, as you say, do individuals need that high level of technical knowledge for data roles? I think we touched on this a little bit in the previous discussion, that it's everyone's role rather than just the technical roles. But if you can kind of address that question, maybe we can start with Simon, because I think it segues quite nicely from what you were saying before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. It is everyone's role, and there are varying responsibilities. And I think one of the challenges is going through your data journey and understanding the different roles and responsibilities that there are. So it may be right to the data creator point, you don't need much, you don't need to be a data scientist or know Python or anything like that. You have a certain role, and your responsibility is to enter the data right first time based on these aspects that we've defined, because we've designed what we want from the data. And I think being able to then enable them to understand where they are in that data journey and why it matters that getting data correct is really important, is a good challenge to have, which will help you improve your data quality. But yeah, there will be data creators, there'll be analysts, there'll be admin, all different roles, and they don't all have to be super technical. And I think quite often some of the people in the business who have the most value when you're looking to improve your data quality management are the people who know the business, who know what they're trying to do with the data, and they're not necessarily the data technicians. So they're the experts in the organization, in the organizational outcomes. We might be the experts in the data technical stuff, but we need to collaborate together to get the best outcome. And I think the other question you had was around tools, and I think there is some something to look to in the future, which is if we can use tooling to make it easier to do certain aspects. But I think once again it's a combination of things. We shouldn't look to tools to solve it, because fundamentally data quality is a people process, rather than relying on tools. I don't like it when we rely on them too much, because you really have to understand what's happening to ensure that what you're doing is correct. But they can definitely be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Others who want to contribute? Andrew, did you want to come in second on this one?
What?
Oh no, that may have been no. I don't know.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I may not have fully understood the question, but is this the people responsible for monitoring and correcting data quality, or is this the people actually capturing the data in the first instance? I mean, I think there's for me, systems are very important in this, in that they're set up correctly in the first instance to stop poor data being entered, and obviously that supporting that with good quality training to ensure that the users do use the systems as they're intended to and capture it. From a point of view of monitoring data quality and correcting it, I think there's a place in there for systems. I mean, we're currently looking at robotic process automation as one option of being able to identify common errors which don't necessarily need human intervention to correct. Too many spaces in a postcode, that shouldn't be rejected and sent back for somebody to take a space out. You should be able to do that for them, type thing. So I think it's having that more pragmatic approach to data quality, particularly in correcting it, as to what can be done outside of the actual system itself and away from the original users. So lock down the systems as much as you can, so daft things can't be done in the system and daft data entered, but then being able to recognise what is possible to correct on the outside of that. I mean, within NHS Digital, we've got the full range. We've got data scientists at one end who I don't understand a word they talk about, but I don't understand what the data managers talk about either. But I think they have it. When you start to look at these different roles, it's data quality then starts to be in the context of their role. So what's important to an analyst and a data scientist in terms of the data is very different to what may be to somebody who just needs to collect and process that data. And I think it's been understanding the whole end-to-end piece. I think I've waffled there just to get out of properly answering that question, but hopefully there was some value in what I said.
No, I think it did take a slightly different stance, because first is that everybody's involved, but also you do actually need some technical systems in there, and robotics, etc., can enhance that. Nicole, did you have any points to add there?
Yeah, I think it's probably a massive range. I think it depends in terms of levels of technical skills or what those skill sets are. I think data is a very broad profession now. There's a lot of different people that touch data at different parts in its life cycle, and I think it also just depends on what resources and how big that organization is. I'm sure I've definitely got colleagues who in previous roles have been kind of almost seems like a sort of data one-man band. They do everything from capture, store, all the kind of security and the kind of analytics at the end, and that is a very different skill set to, where within Ordnance Survey we've got lots of different teams doing different bits and pieces, and they all come with their own unique set of skills. And I think there is a really important role in kind of bringing that all together and being able to almost elevate that. A lot of what we've spoken about today is around kind of senior leadership, and I think kind of covered that broad spectrum of different types of people with different agendas is to have a lot of different people doing data and a lot of diversity doing that, because that's the best way to then ultimately achieve kind of a collective goal. And so I think it really depends. On a very personal level, I've got some technical skills, but then I work with our data scientists and quite quickly feel like I get out of my depth and don't know half of what they're speaking about, but I feel like I can follow the kind of broad concept of what they're doing and trust them to know the kind of technical detail, and then hopefully kind of ask those questions that help us to get to the outcome. So I think it's really broad, and I definitely don't think data is purely for people who can code. If it was, I probably shouldn't be here. And
those that can code can talk to those that can't.
Yeah, but I think it is really important then to be able to sort of almost translate and talk, to be able to talk lots of different languages, so that when I am talking to people who are more technical, that's maybe a different conversation than if I'm talking with people who are maybe more customer orientated, and being able to have that kind of breadth of almost a kind of underlying level of holistic knowledge to have those conversations.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And Teresa, did you have anything to add there?
Agree with everything that's been said, actually. The only two things I would add, excuse me, is that in policing, what we're looking to do is to build some career pathways so that we can attract and retain the best data professionals, whatever their data role might be. I mean, I'm a librarian by profession, so I like things to be in a set place, so data quality suits me. I've got a little bit of technical knowledge, but I wouldn't be able to do any sort of technical work, but that hasn't held me back. I think emphasising the point that both Simon, Andrew and Nicole have made around bringing that all together, because then you get the right expertise, don't you, in the right place. In terms of what tooling's available, the only point I'd also make is that again, it goes back to our strategic leaders and making sure that in policing we're intelligent clients. So that when we're going out to the market looking for particular technologies to support whatever it might be, whether it's data quality or anything else, that we know exactly what it is we want, and we know exactly what outcome we're looking to achieve, so that we can get the best available tooling to support that particular role, rather than the shiniest one that I talked about previously.
Thank you. I want to keep plugging you for questions. There's a couple which have actually got names against them, so I'm going to try those. The first one's for Andrew Heggs. So outside of financial levers, how did you communicate the promotion of the data quality index to over 400 organizations to receive and understand feedback? So what methods did you use? Did you use surveys, forums, etc.?
Yeah, we use a variety. So, where GDPR will allow us to. So obviously, the the data is being collected by different collection teams, and they have separate contacts with these users. But we ran separate data quality provider forums, so people could come in and discuss data quality issues, and we use those to promote our things like the DQMI. We've used surveys in the past for people to tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what would help them. Because obviously one of the things we always miss on this is we just push it out there and expect them to find the way to resolve these. And obviously what we look to do is bring people together to tell us how they've approached it. There's some very innovative stuff happen across the NHS from a data quality point of view. So we look for as many opportunities as we can to join other forums and the like to actually discuss that. Always keen to learn how people are approaching it. I'm not about sitting in the centre and dreaming up new ways of doing things. I'm previous time in knowledge management. So plagiarism, I think, is fantastic. Why? You do not need original thought and an original approach to everything. Let's learn what works best for other people and share those. But that tends to be it. Although going back to the financial incentive, that got the most focus. We'd run webinars before Teams came along, and they were called webinars back in those days. We'd run one around the DQMI and get about 5 or 10 people signing. The month after the seeking and the incentive was introduced, we got 89 providers. No, I think it was 189 actually. All came in all at once and wanted to talk about the DQMI because suddenly there was money attached to it. So it can have that positive effect. So you've got that opportunity to start to have that conversation with them. It's how you then maintain that going forward. Particularly with this incentive was only for 12 months, so it went away. So our biggest fear was the DQ of that particular data set, the mental health data set, would then drop. But we've been quite encouraged that it's actually it's not plateau, it's steadily improving still. So we didn't get that massive drop off. So again, we're looking to see how we can learn why that happened, because traditionally we would have expected them to have focused elsewhere, but it may be that what they did to correct those data quality issues wasn't on a month-by-month basis. It was more they addressed the underlying issues in the system or in the way the data was captured. That actually meant that data quality was maintained.
Thank you. And the other specific question we've got is for Teresa. Is there an open culture of forces sharing their data? Are some embarrassed if their data is not of a high standard? How have you convinced those with low quality data to share?
Is that the hard question left to last, is it? God. Okay, right. There's a couple of answers to that question, really. I think that we're probably in the best position we've ever been, actually, with the way in which policing is sharing data with other police forces. So all forces, if you're not aware, will upload intelligence, crime, custody, and safeguarding data onto what's known as the Police National Database. And we're probably in the best position we've ever been as to how that data's been uploaded and how often it's being uploaded, which is really, really good. In all honesty, I don't think forces knew how good or bad their data was a couple of years ago, to be honest. So I think there would have been a lack of awareness as to the quality of what they were sharing on a national platform. We have changed that now. So we have a dashboard that we produce, excuse me, which tells each police force the quality of what their data is that they upload onto PND. Now, we've not had any forces not sharing data because of that dashboard, even if their data is showing to be poor, because we're able to then provide some tools to support them in actually improving that data. So we don't see the dashboard as being a stick, we see it as being an enabler to build some good data quality culture. So I think that's probably the important point to make for that. We don't produce league tables because I don't want that. I don't want to create perverse behaviours because people then subsequently just chase a target rather than looking at data quality because it's the right thing to do. So I may well not have answered all that question, but basically, no, the sharing hasn't dropped off if forces have got poor data, which is a good thing. Or it might not be a good thing. I mean, we obviously want the data to improve, and where we've seen the best improvements have been in those forces who've got a dedicated quality lead, who've got chief officer buy-in, who've got a checkbook, not a blank checkbook, but who've got the ability to look at tooling and to look at resources, and who are constantly doing the things that Andrew, Nicole and Simon have talked about around communicating the why to the business. And I'll stop there because I can talk for hours about this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This may be, we're getting towards the end of our time. So there's a question here, and it may open up the issue of handling data from third parties, which I think is well, I appreciate a lot of you have a lot of bodies that you know you're getting data from. Chris has asked the question. Chris, are you available? Lucia, you perhaps don't know who Chris is. That won't work very well, will it? Let me ask the question. Yeah. When handling data from third parties, what are the thoughts regarding the pros and cons of remediating or standardizing the data on receipt over feedback to source? Is one more valuable to do, or do these go hand in hand? I think it's a question really about how you handle data from third parties and advice you've got on how best to do that.
Shall I chip in?
If you would, Sam, thank you.
Yeah, I think it is a question. It's a bit of both. We obviously get third-party data in, and it's working in collaboration where you can. So being able to understand the quality of the data in the first place is really good. So if they are doing some work where they communicate it on delivery, that's great. But also then if you're able to understand, you've got to be able to understand if you're able to use that for the purpose you want. I mean, it might be the only, as we've discussed, it might be the only source, but you've got to make sure you're using it in the right way with the eyes open. And it may be that you might need to use some other data to bring it up to the standard you want, but also I think working with the third party if possible is a really valuable thing to do to make it a collaboration.
Thank you. Perhaps Nicole, were you going to comment on this one?
Yeah, I would echo what Simon says, but I do think there's a lot of value in feeding back to source, or at least making sure those processes are there to facilitate that feedback. I guess that if there's probably other people using that data too, whether it's organizations or individuals, and I guess sort of proliferating that through, and then let's say, for example, in Ordnance Survey, if we were to update it and not feed that back, you end up with just lots of different but similar data. And actually, by feeding that back to source, you can potentially benefit a lot more different users through almost that kind of single change. I do appreciate that kind of balances with maybe that's a bit slower, maybe that's a bit more, to kind of feedback, update, and then pass back through the system. So I do appreciate it kind of does come with its not the absolute perfect solution, but I think making sure that there is that kind of open communication, open relationship between organizations to have that, and to let people feedback, I think is really important, because I think fundamentally often the people who, like we've sort of spoken about a lot, the people who are creating the data maybe aren't using it, and it might be that you just it's a greater intelligence network of the people who are then using it, who might be on the ground or might be using it for something and kind of getting results that maybe look slightly suspect. And I think the more you can do to get that back at the very as early in the kind of data chain as possible, the more likely you are to not kind of have modifications or manual overrides or what have you, but actually just let it flow all the way back through.
Thank you. Teresa, Andrew, do you have any comments there?
Really what you're describing, the whole NHS approach to data collection there, essentially it's 400 plus providers who are essentially a third party. We as NHS Digital, we don't generate that much data of our own. We do a lot of derivation off the back of that, but it is all third party data into us. So our approach has always been that improving data quality at source. So everything has been about being able to tell whoever sent us the data what's wrong with it as close to that point of of submission so that they're still focused on it, because it isn't long after sending data to us that they're concentrating on the next month. So they've lost interest in that. If it came into us and we accepted it, then they've moved on from it. So we're actually looking to see if we can do things before they send it to us to help them. So we're looking at pre-submission DQ tools at the moment to say, if you were to send this data to us now, this is what would be wrong with it. Here's an opportunity to correct it before you send it to us, so that it stops being a burden at that point you've sent it to us. But again, mixed with my point earlier about things like robotic process automation or a more pragmatic approach to it. Let's pick the bits we want to throw back, which it would never be possible for us to live with or alter ourselves. You know, the postcode with too many spaces in it is probably something you can live with in your source system, because that letter will still get delivered. It's when we want to use it for derivation and things like that that it breaks in our system. So why make somebody else correct it? We can correct it ourselves. So it's looking at how we get that balance right. That what can we help them help themselves do, and what can we do to fix things without adding that extra burden to them.
Thank you. Teresa, did you want to come in on that one?
Just to echo everything that's been said, to be honest, but also we're now working with the Home Office and policing with the supplier community around the validation of data, which I think Andrew's already talked about in his comments, just to make sure that the data is as accurate, as close to creation as possible. We talk about data quality being system agnostic, really. So it's very much about what are the standards we're looking for, and then working with the technologies to create that, so that we shouldn't have that same issue with third-party data. When we do, then what we're trying to do is to improve the feedback, so that we are really clear about what's good and what isn't, and what's acceptable and what isn't. And I think the point Andrew makes about some areas you can live with is absolutely spot on. You know, we try and focus on the stuff that has the biggest impact on the way in which our data matches. That's where you're going to get the biggest buy-in. If you were to look at everything, you'd be spending the rest of your life correcting data. So we try and only focus on the stuff that matters, because not every data has the same value.
Okay, thank you very much, all four of you. I think we've got an awful lot of value out of you. So that's been. Just a final domestic before we do sign off. We've got. You'll see that Rebecca's put the email in the chat there, and we also have a survey out to help us shape our future provisions from the DQ Hub, and to collect your experiences and opinions. What I would like to do is to thank everyone for attending. Really good attendance. I think that indicates there might be more for the future. I think possibly a data event for non-data people might be on the cards at some point, because we don't all have to be Python programmers to be data people, thankfully. But mostly, yeah, thank you to our four brilliant contributors. It's all been shaped around you. We've learned an awful lot from you, and that's been really excellent. So well done to you. It's been, I like your frank remarks. It's been entertaining and mostly insightful. So thank you, Simon, Teresa, Nicole, and Andrew. And that's it. Thank you for attending, everybody, and see you at our next event.